USERRA is the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. It's a federal law that protects the civilian employment rights of veterans and members of the National Guard and Reserve. USERRA has three main purposes. The first purpose is to encourage military service by minimizing the disadvantages to civilian careers that are caused by serving in the military. Another purpose of USERRA is to provide for prompt reemployment in civilian jobs following a period of service. And the last purpose of USERRA is to prevent employment discrimination on the basis of past, present, or future service. USERRA provides in most cases that those who serve our country in the uniformed services have a right to return to their civilian jobs after that service. It also prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of past, present, or future military service. If you believe your USERRA rights may have been violated, you have a few options. The first is to contact the Department of Defense's Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, or ESGR. ESGR is a nationwide network of volunteer ombudsmen, many of whom are veterans, who provide information and technical assistance to both employers and employees with USERRA questions. ESGR also provides informal assistance in resolving disputes. In addition, you may have the right to file a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Labor Veterans Employment and Training Service. You can also seek technical assistance and information from the Department of Labor Vets or from the U.S. Office of Special Counsel. At OSC, we have telephonic and email hotlines where you can ask USERRA questions, and we can provide information and technical assistance. Employers who have questions or need information about USERRA should contact the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, which is run through the U.S. Department of Defense. ESGR can provide information and technical assistance and even informal dispute resolution for employers and employees with USERRA questions. If you have a question about whether USERRA has been violated in your case, or you just need assistance in complying with USERRA or determining whether your rights have been violated, you have a few different options. The first option is to contact the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. It's an informal process that allows you to discuss questions and get information, and even have ESGR contact your employer if you're an employee with a question and try to resolve any issues that may arise. You also have the right to file a formal USERRA complaint. All complaints are to be filed with the U.S. Department of Labor Veterans Employment and Training Service, which has offices in all 50 states. So in addition to initial employment, where an employer is not to take into account whether someone is a veteran, is currently serving as a member of the National Guard or Reserve, or may serve at some point in the future, may get called up. An employer is obligated not to take that into account in their initial hiring decisions, but also, once someone's hired, they are not to take that into account in determining raises, promotions, retention in employment, and any benefits of employment. One common misconception is that USERRA only covers involuntary military service. However, USERRA also covers voluntary service. It has a very broad definition of what is considered covered as uniformed service. Another common misconception under USERRA is that employees must provide copies of their orders to their employer before departing from military service. That is not the case. Employees only must provide advance verbal or written notice of their service. They are not required to provide copies. An additional misconception under USERRA is that an employee who departs to perform service must reschedule their shifts, for instance, with other employees and coworkers. That is the employer's responsibility, not the employee's. One last misconception under USERRA is that an employee who departs from military service, returns to their civilian job, just gets put back in the exact same position that they were in prior to serving. However, USERRA incorporates something called the escalator principle. The idea of the escalator principle is to try to determine with reasonable certainty what position the employee would have been in had they never departed from military service. So where would they have been had they remained continuously employed? So the employer is required to undertake reasonable efforts to ensure that that person is put in that escalator position, which embodies both careers' ups and downs. There are three basic protections under USERRA. The first is a protection against employment discrimination, which means that if you are a service member or a veteran, that you cannot be discriminated against by your employer in initial hiring, promotions, retention in employment, or any benefit of employment because of past, present, or future military service. The second protection under USERRA is known as reemployment, or a right to be reinstated and to return to your civilian job following a period of uniformed service. To have reemployment rights under USERRA, you have to follow three basic requirements. One is that you provide advance notice of your military service to your employer, which can be written or verbal, as long as it's in advance of the period of service. The second is that you perform qualifying service, which means that you get an honorable discharge and not a disqualifying discharge. In addition, there is a 5-year limit under USERRA to have reemployment rights, such that you cannot serve for more than 5 years cumulatively with one employer. There are many exceptions to that rule, mostly involving involuntary type service. The last requirement for reemployment rights is that you make a timely request for reemployment or return to your job in a timely manner. And this is based upon how long you've been away for your military duty. The last protection under USERRA is that you are protected against retaliation by your employer for exercising rights under USERRA, such as filing a complaint with the Department of Labor or assisting someone else, even if you are not a service member, to exercise their rights under USERRA.